Welcome back to Reliving Retro. This is Season 5, Episode 2. And if you're new here, we pick one game at random every single week, invite a guest on, and rate it in 5 different categories: story, gameplay, visuals, sound, and how well it aged. This week we have a very special guest, so allow him to introduce himself. Go ahead, Ben.
Hi, Les Dilemma on YouTube and Instagram, Les Dewitt on TikTok, and probably a bunch of other stuff.
Thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate it. Yeah, you make a bunch of gaming content on TikTok primarily, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
Yeah, used to be YouTube, but think about going back, making more videos. I got some more long-term stuff ideas. You
should, man. You should. Cool. You're really good at the videos on TikTok. So I'd like to see what you could do on the YouTube form, especially on like YouTube Shorts. Put a bunch of those out because those help.
Oh, if my friend sees this, he's gonna ring the "I told you so" bell because he's been telling me that for a couple months now.
yeah. I mean, our Shorts videos get at least a couple thousand usually, which I mean that's pretty good for us. So, but all right. So, getting to know you. Couple getting to know you questions here. What would you say your introduction to gaming was? Maybe what your first console was, how old you were when you got it, that kind of thing. It
was the original Nintendo, Super Mario Brothers. Brother would give me the second controller, and I would chew on the cord because I was 3, but he'd let me think I was contributing. So
of course. Very cool. What would you say that some of your favorite types of games to play are, like your favorite genres?
Over time, I'm starting to realize it was a lot of fighting games, but I played online and I got humbled really hard. But I play a lot of, I love the open world games now. The games like Breath of the Wild and Skyrim that you could just, lose hours in just walking around and looking at stuff, I get a high when you get that little you discovered in the middle of the screen. I'm like, yes,
right.
That's what I live for.
That is cool. I remember always playing WoW, and back when before I knew really the purpose of the game was to like quest and grind or whatever, and then get up to whatever level you needed to get to so you could do dungeons and get your gear up and all that kind of stuff. I used to just walk around, and my favorite thing was when I explored a new area and like you would get like an achievement for that area, and then you would get like experience points for that, and I was like, oh yeah, it's so sick. And then I'd look at the map and the whole thing was like expanded, and I'm like, dude, I love like the exploring of new areas in World of Warcraft. So I definitely understand that part of it. That's a lot harder for me to do now with 2 kids. Like it's tough to like have that time to kind of put into those types of games. But
it took me like 3 years to beat Fallout 4. And I don't even have kids that I know of.
Oh, geez. That's funny. So what are some games that you've been playing lately?
I just finished Breath of the Wild again. Because I wanted to give the Wii U one last hurrah. And I played it on the Wii U.
That's cool, though.
Thank you. A lot of people give me crap for playing Wii U.
Well, I love the Wii U. I think the Wii U gets so much hate. I think the Wii U is way better than the Wii. I've always been a big fan of the Wii U, but obviously it marketed everything wrong, and all of the good games that are worth playing on the Wii U have been ported to the Switch, so it kind of makes the Wii U obsolete. And
and that damn tablet.
Yeah, you really don't need it anymore, unfortunately. But for what it is, at the time, I loved the Wii U. I thought it was really good. So yeah, dude, props for playing it on the Wii U. So what else? Are you playing anything else, or was that pretty much it?
I've kind of been dabbling a little bit in a bunch of other games. And luckily, one of the game we're talking about today was a game I was like, man, I should go back and revisit that. And when you mentioned it, I was like, oh, perfect. And I was setting up my Ouya. Do you know what the Ouya is?
So I know what it is. I've never had it, never played it or anything like that. But
yeah, it's that for everybody watching, it's that old Android box. It was like Stadia before Stadia. It was this idea that sounded grand and everybody funded it, and then it just flopped hard because it was just an Android box. But it's really useful for emulation. So I essentially, after the whole thing went kaputs, the whole hacking, Discord is like, all right, we're on this now. So I've been testing games on it, seeing what works, because I have an RG 351 handheld, and a lot of times I just want to play games on a screen. So it's nice. In fact, the game, you know, that we're talking about today, I was originally playing on the handheld, and I'm like, I gotta play this on a screen.
Nice.
Just gotta play this on a screen.
Yeah,
But
that's awesome.
That's cool.
but lately it's been just a bunch of random Game Boy games and other stuff that I'll just scroll through the library. I'll be like, let's play that for a few. Let's just play that for a little bit.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I have a modded Xbox, and that has a ton of games on it. And I find myself doing the same thing sometimes. I'm just like scrolling through the library of stuff that's on there, and I'm like, I kind of want to just play like 10 minutes of this or like 5 minutes of that. It's not anything I would consider like myself that I've been playing it, but I just want to like jump into some old games and just like, you know, give it like 15 minutes of my time.
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned that, because just yesterday I was looking up a video on how to mod the Xbox, and
Nice.
I was starting to think maybe I have a problem because I just modded my DS just because I got bored on a Monday. And I just keep I modded my PSP. I just mod things too much, and I'm like, I need to stop. I don't need to play everything on everything.
I would love to get a Vita and mod that, because I've heard that they're fantastic for emulation.
That's the only thing I haven't modded yet, that and the Wii. Because I was looking, I have 2 Vitas, so I'm like, well, I could just make one the hack Vita, you know. But I'm like, I don't know. I kind of don't want to do anything with the Vita. I kind of like it how it is, because I feel like I appreciate it for what it is, and it you know, playing all the Vita games on it really brings it. It's like, plus I got all these other hacked things, so.
It's true. How many hack things do you really need, right? Maybe one portable thing, one thing to hook up to the TV, and then you're good to go.
Yeah. And that's why I brought the Ouya back out, because it was the one thing that played almost everything. It's one of the only things that I could get to play 64 games on it.
Nice. You know what's funny is, like, you mentioned the Ouya, like we emulate on our phones all the time, and we both have Android phones, and it actually works pretty well. We both own what's it called, Yaiser?
The Kishi?
Yeah, the Razer Kishi. It's a controller for your phone. You just plug it in, and it works. It's like auto detect for the most part too. You just plug it right in, and it's just like, okay, buttons are mapped and everything. You're good to go. It's
nice.
actually it works pretty well.
I had a 8-bit dough, because I had the PS1. I think it was the EPSXE emulator on my phone, and I would use this 8-bit dough controller that had, you know, all the buttons, the L1 and the L1, L2, all the top buttons, all the buttons you need, the 2 sticks. So I would take that when I used to work at a casino overnight. I would be in the break room with it propped up on a table with a bunch of napkins and me with a little controller. They'd be like, "What you doing?" I'm like, playing Bushido Blade.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, cool that you work in a casino. That you worked in a casino at least too, right? I mean,
oh yeah, it was what's the word I'm looking for?
Interesting.
Yeah.
I was gonna say you must have a couple decent stories from working in a casino.
Oh, there's gotta be
some weird ones. I used to work at one during the day, and I ended up going to a different one that paid more overnight. And day and night is literally it's day and night. Yeah. Like the day you deal with the old folks coming in, that you see the same old people every day spending their retirement money, going, here I am, dearie, blowing another 1,000 today. And I'm like, okay, Beth, have a good one. You know, and then like nighttime, it's like, there's a guy having a seizure and puking all over himself. We got a guy who stole a backpack over there. We got some dude trying to break in.
Jeez. Were you security, or were you like maintenance?
Security. Yeah. I guess I didn't mention that. Yeah, I was security. So that's where a lot of the excitement came from, is being the guy who's like, hey,
oh man,
you got to go take care of this dude. And it's like, and during the day, when I did the day shifts, it was just 2 old people arguing, like, he took my seat. I didn't take the seat. You went to the bathroom too long. That's, you know, it's like, well, you give him back his seat, Phil. But like nighttime, it was like, a guy brought a freaking gun in his backpack. You didn't check the backpack? Why didn't you check the backpack? And this was like the guy whose dad was like the chief of the tribe that we worked at. He had seriously nepotism. So they're like, well, why isn't he fired yet? I would have gotten fired for that. So it's like, well, Les, you go check, make sure this guy gets out of here. I'm like, sure thing, I guess. I don't have a lot to live for.
That's too funny. I can't imagine, like, it's probably pretty tough being security at a casino, especially considering a lot of times IDs get turned down, and then you have to turn people away, and they probably put up a fight, because I know I did one time when my ID got turned down. So it's just one of those things. Like, my ID was expired, but I'm like, that doesn't change my birthday. Like, my birthday's still the same. And then they're like, that doesn't matter. The ID is expired. You can't come here. And
that's kind of bullshit.
Yeah, it sucks, but there's actually a legal reason behind that, because if you won a jackpot, you wouldn't actually be able to claim it if your ID was expired, and it was like some sort of state law that it would just go right back to the casino. I can't remember what it was, but it essentially meant that if you won a jackpot, you'd be screwed.
Well, joke's on you guys. I was never going to win a jackpot.
Right. I hated it when my friends were like, "Oh, let's go to the casino tonight." And I'm like, please, no. It's like, I don't want to be on the other side of it, especially when they're drunk and I got to walk in with them, but knowing full well that we're the ones that are going to get escorted out. I'm going to be on the other end. I'm going to be talking to my friend like, "Hey, I'm sorry about this."
Are you allowed to gamble at the same casino you work at?
Gosh, I don't know. I've never done that. Because when I went gambling with friends, it was at a different casino.
Gotcha.
And when I say gambling with friends, I mean they hand me a 20 and they just spend the money because they knew I didn't want to be there. Just spend this. If you win something, keep it. But it was we did have people who worked there who would come in and gamble, but I think you had to do it at a different casino. Like if there's two companies, they have two different casinos. I think if I'm right, you have to go to the other one. You can't go to the one you work at.
Gotcha.
And if you're surveillance, you can't participate at all. Surveillance is like the last stop for casinos. Is like you won't even get rehired if you get fired. You're not even allowed. You're perma banned from the casino because you've seen everything. You know everything that's going on in there. You know all the secrets, the locks, all that stuff. So, so you'd be like the Ocean's 11 guy with your friends going in there.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. So actually a bit of news. We are going to Too Many Games in Philadelphia the weekend of June 23rd through the 25th. So if you guys are going there, shoot us a message. We'd love to meet up with you, say hi and stuff like that. We're staying at a hotel with a casino, so it just happened to be a pretty good segue there because I planned on saying that we were going to go to Too Many Games anyway. And me and Yaiser will probably spend a little bit of time at a blackjack table, just a little bit of time, not a lot because...
No, never a lot, right?
Because you end up being really sad by the end of the night. But yeah, so like I said, shoot us a message on like Twitter, Instagram, whatever. If you want to meet up with us on at Too Many Games, because we'd love to meet up with you guys. You can also check us out on Patreon, where it costs only $2 a month to get your game submitted to the Patreon pool. We do a Patreon game every single month. Next week happens to be a Patreon week, so pretty excited about that.
Yeah.
Also, check us out on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Spotify. If you're watching on YouTube, and if you're listening on Spotify, check us out on YouTube. And we also stream pretty regularly. I would say like once a week or so on Twitch. So follow us over on Twitch. We usually stream the game that we're playing that week. So if you want to get our opinions a little bit before the show, then head over to Twitch because that's where we do that. All right. This week we played Twisted Metal for the PS1. Now, I thought I had experience playing this game. I was wrong. I played Twisted Metal 2 for sure. I never played this one. As soon as I booted it up, I'm like, none of this looks familiar at all. Yaiser, what about you? Did you have any experience playing the original Twisted Metal before this week?
No, I had actually the same exact experience you had with this game.
That's too funny.
So I was expecting to fire it up and have a lot of fun, but
spoiler alert,
it went a little different.
What about you, Les? Any experience prior to this week with Twisted Metal?
Yeah, I got it for my birthday as a kid. I think it was my 10th birthday, because I rented Twisted Metal 3, and I was like, oh, I want to start from the beginning, and I told my mom, get me Twisted Metal for my birthday. So for my birthday that year, I got Twisted Metal and Rugrats Search for Reptar. I know, quite the duo.
I put
so I'm playing two different.
Put hours in the Search for Reptar. Are you kidding me?
Right.
The mini golf mini games, and then oh man, I remember looking for all the Reptar pieces and stuff like that. We actually me and my daughter actually just fired that up a couple of years ago. That's a good time.
I revisited it recently too, and I thought it was funny. They all had like paper arms.
yeah, it's not great. It's not a great look, but it's fun for what it is, I guess. All right, so did you have the long box version, Les, or did you have the normal jewel case?
I had the greatest hits green label jewel case, because this was when TM3 already was out.
Right. That's what I figured.
This was immediately after. So when my mom got it, she got it new from like a Kmart or a Shopko. and I played the heck out of it. I got every ending because this was, before you could just look up stuff online. I had to see every ending. I had to read every text crawl.
It's the dedication, man. We don't have that anymore because we're just like, whatever. I beat the game. Let's see what the other endings were on YouTube.
Yeah,
There's
I don't even get
like a
DLCs
10-minute
anymore.
video. Yeah, like a 10-minute video on YouTube. You can see all the endings. Yeah, I used to go into I think it was KB Toys. They used to have greatest hits for the PS1, and they were all like $19.99 or something like that. And I would always just wait until a game came out for was released as a greatest hits to buy it. I remember buying like Final Fantasy 7 and Final Fantasy 8 and Spyro and like all like the best PS1 games, all greatest hits. I remember I spent like $100, got like 5 of the greatest games ever made for PS1, and I was so happy as a kid. All right, so this week, Yaiser, how many hours would you say you put into this game?
Probably around 2.
Okay. And did you beat it?
I didn't beat it with anyone.
Yeah, I played it for about 3.5. I also did not beat it. This game is tough. Les,
hard.
what about you?
Yeah, it was harder than I remembered. I started with Sweet Tooth because Sweet Tooth was usually my main in every other game. And I realized very quickly that he was not getting me anywhere in the first game. He had the best strength super special move, the ice cream cone of death or whatever it was called.
So hard to hit though.
Yeah, it didn't have, like, later on in the games they all give it like a slight homing ability like the fire missile has. But in that game you got to do a straight line.
Yeah.
So when I swapped characters, because I was like, I'm not going to beat this. It's like, let's give it another try. So I tried Roadkill, who used to be my main back when I played it back then. And I beat it with Roadkill.
Nice. Okay.
I had to, but when I died, I had to, since the game doesn't save your progress, I had to use the password and start the level over again when I lost all my lives. So it was a little bit of a trudging uphill, but I, thank God for passwords.
I could have used passwords and I just didn't for some stupid reason. I was just no. I'm gonna beat it without using the passwords. And then I was just stuck on the level where you have to fight 5 cars forever.
Yeah. Are you talking about the freeway?
Yes.
Yeah. That's where I kept losing with everybody. And then it was like with Roadkill, I was like, okay, let's give it the old try with that. And I got so close that time. And I was like, it's like, you know what? Let's just do the password thing. So when I lose, I'll start the level over again. So, I mean, I beat it, but with the little caveat that it was with the password so I could start the level over. So I was using like modern restarting.
Yeah.
Where like most games would just let you start that level over.
I count it 100%. Because I even count like if you use rewind, especially nowadays, like where you don't have time to go through and die 19,000 times to the same part over and over and over again to just get through the game. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
No, you definitely beat it 100%. All right, let's head over to story. I'll start us off actually because I want to read what it says the story is here. So this game's plot centers around a man named Calypso, the host of a vehicular. I can't say that word right. Somebody say that word.
Vehicular? You nailed it.
Vehicular.
Yeah. Okay, I thought I killed it. I thought it was a bad word. Combat tournament called Twisted Metal. He promises to grant the winner of the tournament anything he or she desires without any limit or availability or even reality. The game's story takes place on Christmas Eve, 2005, during the 10th annual running of Twisted Metal and taking place in Los Angeles. So it's pretty interesting that, I mean, I guess like you had to kind of read this in the manual because it didn't really say this. Right? Like as soon as the game starts up, it just gives you a menu. But if you let it sit there for a while, there plays like a big long video. And I could have swore there was text that scrolled. Is there scrolling text? Yeah, okay. Les, you want to jump in?
The first when you wait at the menu the first time, then it does the demo.
That's what I saw.
The little video that looked like it was like a compressed video put on of the gameplay. Yeah. And then if you did it again, it would do, I think, character specific bio, how Mortal Kombat would do it with the character specific bio. And then it would go back to the menu. And then if you wait again, you could see the text crawl with Calypso's burnt face in the background of exactly the text that you were talking about, the one that's in the manual.
Yeah.
And you could also see that if you go into the options and go to contest history or whatever it's called.
Oh,
Cool. I actually I didn't check that out because I'm a dummy, I think. But other than that, I thought that the story was pretty like self-explanatory, I suppose. You know what I mean? You're obviously like you're in a tournament. I didn't know about the Calypso thing until I looked it up, because I completely forgot like all of the lore of Twisted Metal in the past 20 years that I haven't played the game. There are a ton of characters in this game, and each character does have like a little summary, like a little bio of like why they're in it, or like whether they're, I mean, like Sweet Tooth is like pretty mysterious in his bio. My favorite bio, I think, that I read goes to Pit Viper, and they were just like, yeah, she's a woman, she's playing for $1 million. And we're just like, okay. All you need to know, like, I guess. Literally just, she's a girl, $1 million. That's all you need to know about her. And I was just like, all right, cool. So Les, you said you played through as Roadkill and beat it as Roadkill, right?
Yeah, Roadkill being my main in the very first game when I was a kid too.
Mm-hmm. And Yaiser, who did you play primarily as?
Warthog.
Okay. I wanted to like Warthog for some reason. I didn't. I needed a guy that had like a little bit better handling. And for me, I used Thumper because I felt like his stats were like the most, I guess, like the most Mario of all of them. Like they're really just like kind of just in the middle. And I was just like, yeah, that's kind of what I look for, I think. Just, you know what I mean? Because like Sweet Tooth, I think, had like the most power and like the biggest armor or whatever, but had like terrible handling and terrible speed or whatever. So I'm like, I don't want somebody who's too extreme on one side and awful on the other one or whatever. So I just wanted somebody really well-rounded. And so I chose Thumper. Definitely the person I got the farthest with as well. But I did play as a ton of other characters. I tried Darkseid, I tried Outlaw, I tried Crimson Fury, I tried Pit Viper, Warthog. I didn't try Mr. Grimm because I'm just like, that's going to be awful. I'm not going to be able to control that thing at all.
When you get rammed, it's like a quarter of your health.
Yeah, I wasn't even, I figured it would be stupid. So I was like, I'm not going to be the guy on the motorcycle in the vehicular combat game. And then I tried Hammerhead and Roadkill as well. Roadkill was a guy that I also did fairly well with. So those two, Thumper and Roadkill, were definitely my favorites, I think, of the characters I could choose. I ended up giving story a 4 because I liked the whole tournament aspect of it. I like that there's like this crazy madman Calypso running the whole thing. And I love that all the contestants have their own like little bios. And the fact that each contestant, when you beat it with them, has like their own ending, their own video or whatever. So I think that that's really cool. For a vehicular combat game, what else can you really add for story? So I gave it a 4. I thought it was really good for what it needed to be. Yaiser?
Yeah. I'm almost there with you. I landed at a 3.5.
Okay.
I don't know what much more I can say other than what we all just talked about for the past 5 minutes. But yeah, I mean, as soon as because I had to look up the story too, because I completely forgot. But as soon as I saw Calypso's name, I was like, oh shit, yeah, that's right, that's the guy who runs the shit. And and yeah, everybody's got their own cool little backstory. And if you beat it with everybody, you get that cool little cutscene too, right? So I give it some points for that, but it's okay. Thought it was all right.
I actually saw Calypso's name on a box in the first level, and that rang a bell. And I was like, "Oh, Calypso, that's a name I should know." And then I looked up the story in the manual.
Yeah.
What about you, Les? What did you rate the story?
I honestly thought I would be rating it pretty high, but you rated it the same as me, 4.
Cool.
Because I thought it was a cool idea to make it so the big MacGuffin was wishes, because then you kind of can get behind a character, because it's, initially you could pick a character based on their vehicle that you like, but then as you play the game more, back when it was new, you play the game more, you learn more of their motivations. Like, oh, I want to play as that guy because he wants to go back to the war and save his platoon, and I want to see him get that. Or I want to see what Sweet Tooth would wish for. It adds this cool element to replay it.
Yeah, crazy fuck.
Yeah, and it makes it so it gives an opportunity for these little twists, like that old monkey's paw thing where be careful what you wish for, or Calypso twisting it to meet like some sort of literal meaning.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually didn't look up any of the endings because I did want to go back and try to beat this game and unlock my own endings. But I really did like that idea of each character having their own endings. And does that continue through the series? Each character has their own?
Yeah. And a lot of times, since drivers don't return, usually the vehicles return, but the drivers don't. So it could be a good or bad person. You might get whatever kind of wish. The only one that ever returns again and again is Charles Kane, Sweet Tooth.
Mm-hmm.
Or was it Charles Kane? I think it was Charles Kane. Yeah.
Charlie Kane, it says here in the Twisted Metal wiki that I'm looking at, it says Charlie Kane is Yellow Jacket and Needles Kane is Sweet Tooth.
Needles Kane, that's right. I can't remember the name of the son. Because yeah, that was one of the twists too. I thought the Yellow Jacket ending was genius, especially when I played it as a kid and I had that big Shyamalan moment. Like I was like, oh no.
Yeah, I gotta look those up because like I said, I didn't even think to look into them because I just wanted
You don't
to.
mind a spoiler, do you?
No,
let's
go
hear
for
it.
it.
Okay.
Yellow
Jacket's wish was to find his son, and then Calypso informs him, oh, your son was Sweet Tooth, you killed him.
Oh,
yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
damn.
I mean,
that's why in the second game, the boss is a guy named Dark Tooth, and that was Charlie Kane going crazy and driving the giant Sweet Tooth tower.
Oh, wow.
You know what's funny is looking this up on YouTube, because I was gonna look up the actual story and the lore and stuff like that, and it was like I saw some videos like explaining the entire lore of Twisted Metal, and it was like 40 minutes long, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to know the whole lore. Maybe just give me like a wrap up of what I'm supposed to be learning here. Then that's when I went to Twisted Metal wiki, and it kind of just gave me, the basic story for the first game, and I'm like, that's what we're covering. That's all I want to know right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's nice to know the whole series, but really, like, we're just kind of covering the first game. So I really want to go back and play Twisted Metal 2. Like, I'm very excited to do that to the point where I might kind of just make it be a game that we play in season 6 because I want to go back and play it, because Twisted Metal just seemed like a game that I put countless hours into as a kid. And I mean, we'll get into it here. Let's actually just get into gameplay right now before we spoil anything else. All right, Yaiser, why don't you kick us off in gameplay?
So to go off of what you were just saying, I'm pretty sure. So I really thought like I played this game specifically, the first one, but I apparently never did. I think my memory was coming from Twisted Metal 2. And I know I played 3. I don't know about 4, but I definitely played a lot of Black. But Twisted Metal 2 was what I thought, I guess, this game was in my head. And I remember that game being so much fun. But this game was a little rough to play, I think. I feel like the cars handled like shit. The first level, just the round room with one other dude.
God. Yeah.
I found it was so hard just to hit the fucking guy with anything,
because
especially
just going in laps, dude. That was so annoying.
And it's such a dark arena that if you found yourself against Mr. Grimm or Darkseid, I felt like it was so hard to find them. I mean, Darkseid was obviously easier, but Mr. Grimm, I had even with the radar, I had such a hard time finding enemies sometimes because they're like flying by you and they can control perfectly. So they'll like fly in behind you and just constantly be behind you. And I'm like, dude, I'm trying to like do a Yui right now and you're still behind me somehow. It's crazy. But yeah, go ahead, Yaiser.
So I found it pretty rough. I thought I remembered like more variety of weapons, but there really isn't that much either. The only real difference, most of the variety comes from everybody's specials, right?
Yeah.
Other than that, it's only like 4 other things or whatever. You got homing missiles, freezing missiles, fire missiles, and fucking like landmines, and that's it, right?
I think so.
Something like that.
Power missiles, homing missiles, fire missiles, those little needle things that you drop, the tire popper ones. Oil slicks, landmines. I think that's everything.
All right, yeah. There's a few more that I guess I didn't notice, but I don't know. There was I guess a lack of what felt like a lack of weapons, anyways. And I really I didn't hate the game. I tried to enjoy it as much as I could, but I landed my score at a 2. I didn't have much fun playing. I tried.
I get you. I'm not too far off from you. I did find that the more and more I played, the more I wanted to continue playing. And that definitely can't be said about every game that we've ever played on the show. So I landed at a 3, but I was really hesitant to make it a 3. I was almost positive I was going to put it at a 2.5. And I was just like, you know what? I played the same 3 levels for 2.5, 3 hours, just switching between characters. I have to give it a little bit higher than a 2.5 because like it made me keep doing it. And there was enough characters that like it felt like I was playing differently every time. Sometimes with a lot of these games, like there's a lot of different characters, but it just feels like a different skin. You know what I mean, for the character.
Mm-hmm.
And this one actually felt like, they handled differently. There was stats for each one. So I bumped it up for that and I gave it a 3. What about you, Les?
I actually gave it the highest rating of all of us, and that kind of is embarrassing because it did not age well. Like the gameplay, especially when I was playing a Sweet Tooth, it became very apparent very quickly that these definitely don't feel like car controls. Like later games definitely improved the maneuvering and everything. I remember playing small ball with my friends and doing like skids around the corner, shooting missiles and stuff. Way cooler in my head. So I'm remembering Twisted Metal 1 that way. But in all reality, it was, playing a Sweet Tooth was like driving a minivan on ice constantly. It was like frozen tires constantly. Every time I made a turn, I would overshoot or undershoot. And I would hit every corner I'd turn around. And then when I got to Roadkill, who had the best handling, I felt like that's the only character I could really play as. And it's like, why would anybody play a Sweet Tooth, the guy on the cover? It's like it's a trap. But yeah. But the gameplay, I feel like was a good starting point for the series. It gets better and better, and then 3 happens and it gets worse and worse, and then Black comes back and it's way better. I gave gameplay a 3.5 because it was a mess, but it's like skating on ice. At first you walk on the ice and it's going to be, you flip-flopping everywhere. But once you kind of realize what to do on the ice a little bit, you kind of figure it out. It's almost adapting to the badness.
Yeah, no, I think you definitely get the hang of it after a little bit. And like I said, I think that's why I wasn't as harsh on it as I initially thought I was going to be. But I did feel like it was still pretty rough, and I think it didn't help that I had those fond memories of the later games going into it, where I'm like, oh, this game's gonna be fantastic. Like I always had a blast playing Twisted Metal, and then I'd get to this one, and I'm like, you know what, this is an issue for me. I'm not having as much fun.
The disappointment.
That's exactly what happened.
Was pretty high.
Yeah. All right. Let's move over to visuals. All right, Les, you want to kick it off with visuals?
Yeah. I feel like the game definitely looks like it came from 95, but it looks good for being from 1995. It was a little rough in like the outside areas where you could kind of see where, like it looks cool when you're not close to it, but when you're close to the edge, you could kind of see behind it. It definitely looks pretty aged. A lot of the cool visuals come from like the art style and how like you kind of understand this world a little bit, like this escape from New York kind of dystopian. All the art kind of reflects that. It's like urban, kind of gives you this familiar setting so that, it kind of just all these visual triggers that kind of get you in a I don't know, it mixes with the audio a certain way to make it so it brought back a lot of memories for me. But the graphics were rough, jagged, very much 1995 PlayStation, but good for its time. I gave that a 3.
Okay. What about you, Yaiser?
So I thought, scrolling through the menu of characters, I'm like, okay, yeah, all these guys, they look pretty cool. All the designs of the cars and, all the characters are cool. But then like you get in game and everything looks fucking the same. It was kind of hard to look at. I feel like we go through this every time with these early PS1 games.
The early 3D games are rough. Yeah,
they're rough to look at sometimes. And this one wasn't It wasn't a standout from the rest, I don't think. I don't remember it looking this bad. Maybe probably because I never played this one. Maybe 2 looks a little better. I don't know. It
I think it
must, right?
does. Yeah.
But yeah, I got another 2 down here, boys.
I was so close to giving it a 2. Actually, to be honest, during the gameplay part, I was pretty close to giving it a 1.5, which seems so low. But the more I played it, the more I got used to it, the more I had to remind myself that this is very, very early 3D PlayStation game. You know what I mean? So I was like, no, I can't be that harsh on it. It's not like it came out in '99 for the PS1. You know what I mean? Like if that was the case, I would probably give it a way worse score. I didn't bump it up too much more, but I will say that my favorite looking part of the game is the menus. I think the menus look fantastic. The Twisted Metal like logo and everything with the as you're scrolling through, and you can see all the characters. They even have like the pictures of the drivers, and I thought that was a really cool touch. And they were real pictures. You know what I mean? Like they weren't like cartoon or like CGI or whatever. So I thought that was really an awesome touch, just a little bit more like realism to the game, and it gives you I feel like it gives you more like of an identity with these characters. And just the design of the vehicles in general, like just I thought were really, really cool. So I bumped it up from my 1.5 to a 2.5 because of that. So you know, it's about, I would say it's about average, you know what I mean? Especially for like a 3D like combat game. I don't know. It's certainly rough when you're playing in it, because I think the backgrounds are all just, it's just kind of like a, I don't know. It's just
repeated assets.
Yeah. It's just the same. It's just kind of the same thing, right?
Cardboard with wallpaper. Yeah.
Yeah. You can't really make out anything in the background. There's no landmarks really to tell where you are, where you were, like on the actual like battlefield map, whatever you want to call it. And when like I just feel like everything just blends together, so it's just so hard to see really what's going on. And the best time to like make out where an enemy is just on a long straightaway. You know what I mean? Like if there's the one level I think where you have to fight 3 cars, and you're just kind of in this like, it really feels like you're in like New York City. That might actually be where, I don't know, it was supposed to be something like that. I know the game takes place in LA, but it felt like you were just like on these like city blocks, and you have to keep going up and down like these streets. And it's so aggravating at some points to try and find the characters you have to kill, unless you're on like a long, like straightaway. And then you kind of see like a red dot, like flying towards you, or like a big black dot, like slowly rumbling towards you, depending on obviously who it was. But
if it's Mr. Grimm, you can't even see him if he's right in front of you.
You can
see a pixel off in the distance.
If I knew I was going against Grimm, dude, I was just trying to save up as many homing missiles as possible, because there was no way I was hitting that dude with anything else. It was tough. Again though, like I would never want to be him, because like Les, you were saying, you run into somebody once and that's like 3/4 of your health, so it's like, what's the point of being that guy?
Crash damage was too much, right?
A little bit too much,
especially when they pinned you, like when there's 3 guys going in a triangular formation hitting you, and all you're watching your health go.
Even like playing as Warhog, he's got that big like fucking Hummer. I fucking even crashing into the walls and stuff takes so much of my health. I'm like, dude, what the fuck is this?
Can I tell you though that it took me 2.5 hours to find out that you can heal, like those little stations, like they can heal you,
because this is the only one where they're not little square pickups.
Well,
they made these weird platforms. I don't know why.
I ran into one on accident when I figured it out.
Well, I saw one and I was like, what does that thing do? I've just been driving past it for 2.5 hours, and then I just drive onto it and I'm like, are you kidding me? This whole time? And then so I landed at a 2.5 there. Yaiser was at a 2, and Les, you were at a 3. So I mean, we're all right around the same for visuals. I totally understand everybody's point of view on that one. Let's move over to sound. Yaiser, you want to kick us off?
I will kick us off. It was fine. I thought the music was fine. The sound effects were fine. It was okay. You know, it wasn't shitty when none of the sounds were like annoying or anything. but nothing like stood out either. So I went right down the middle, 2.5.
Okay.
When did like they start doing like actual songs? Like when did Rob Zombie come into the picture? Was that
I believe
Twisted
that
Metal
was number 2.
3.
Oh, it was 3. Okay.
was
Yeah,
3.
1
he
and
got
2
his own-
used single track, and then 3 and 4 used like Rob Zombie and pitch shifter and stuff.
Gotcha. That's
4
what
is
I
when he
remember
got
the
his
most.
own car, right? They
Mhm.
put Dragula in
Mr.
there.
Zombie. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
His ending was the music video.
That's funny.
awesome. All right. I went a little bit higher than you because I actually enjoyed quite a bit of the music, and I felt like it fit exactly what Twisted Metal was supposed to feel like to me. So I actually landed at a 3.5 with the sound. I thought all the music was really good, and the sound effects I thought were actually really solid for an early PS1 game. So yeah, I landed at a 3.5 for that. What about you, Les?
I gave it a 4.5.
Okay.
I would have given it a 5 if it wasn't for the stock sounding sound effects.
Mhm.
You know, like the pew noises, like just a lot of them sounded like, you know, pew.mp3, you know, like it was a lot of
Yeah.
common sounds. It was 1995 PlayStation game. A lot of games did that. You shot a laser in a PS1 game in 1995.
Mhm.
They're always going to have the same as Blasto. Like,
Yeah.
But yeah, like the music, it's perfect because it's like a truck stop on fire, and that's what Twisted Metal is, where it just sounds like this on a highway, people blowing each other up. It's crazy, but you got like this kind of like this truck stop kind of music that's a little harder and angrier. And then you got like the rooftop. That one's my favorite track because that's where it's all dramatic and it's got this choir in it.
Oh, I didn't get that far.
Oh yeah, and you're flying off the roof. If you're playing a Sweet Tooth, you're gone off the roof. It's over. And there's a bunch of rooftops you're driving up. And when I got to Minion, you know, and he comes up over this other building 3 times the size of you, and that choir kicks in, it was like, yeah, my hair was on end. I'm like, oh, I stocked up on fire missiles. You're going down, bucko.
That's so funny.
But the music I absolutely loved. When I was a kid, I actually used to take the disc and put it in a CD player and just play that music.
Oh no, he's gone.
Oh,
he's back.
it's back. Yeah,
Okay,
I'm wondering if
lost you for a second.
I thought I was gone. I thought I disappeared into the void. I got lost in the digital ether. But I really loved like the Rob Zombie tracks and stuff in the later games. It's just unfortunate like 3 and 4 weren't great. I mean, 4 was all right.
Yeah.
3 was a terrible game, but the soundtrack was dope.
Mhm.
And Rob Zombie music is very fitting of Twisted Metal. So 989 did that correctly with the sound. It's almost like they kind of respected it, but they wanted to put licensed music because they didn't want to make their own.
Yeah.
Even so that the remake even included a Rob Zombie track in it. I can't remember if it was Dragula or Super Beast, but I remember hearing that and thinking like, oh, okay, so this is just a Twisted Metal song. It just sounds like it goes in the back of a Twisted Metal game.
It's like perfect.
Yeah, and it had the music, I forgot to mention, had this dynamic feel where you kind of don't notice it because it's so subtle, but it helps with the mood a little bit. When you're in combat, it's picking up, the band is kicking in, and there's this combat, but once you get away and you're in the back streets and you're looking for others and you see those dots on the radar getting closer, it changes to this suspenseful like this stockish kind of music.
Yeah.
Where like someone's who's stalking who here. And then as soon as you engage it, down, you know. So I didn't notice it when I was a kid because it was so subtle that it just felt like the action was the music or something.
Right. Yeah, no, I thought they did a really good job with the music in this game. Funny side story though. You brought up 989. I went to a garage sale a few years ago, and I went to this lady's house or whatever, and I was just like, "Hey, do you have any video games?" And she's like, yeah, actually, I have some." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." And so she brings out a PlayStation in the box, like a PS1 in the box, with a couple Twisted Metal games, you know, complete in box and stuff like that. And it looked like she'd never touched this stuff. And she was like a really old lady. She was like in her 70s or 80s or whatever. And she's like, "These were my son's." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Like, do you want to give them up, or does he like them or whatever?" And she's like, "Yeah, no, you can have them." She's like, "He probably has a ton of that stuff. He used to work for 989 Studios." I'm like, oh, really?
Whoa.
And she's like, yeah. She goes, he sent these from like the studio. So the Twisted Metal, I think I had 3, and I think I had 2, 3, and 4, and a PS1 like complete in box from 989 Studios at one point. It's pretty cool.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah. I still know where that lady lives if we want to go rob her. No. I don't know why I would say that.
Well, it's out on the internet now. It's too late.
Yeah, I can't take it back. All right, let's move over to aged. All right, Les, I have a feeling you might be the easiest going on this one, so I'll have you go first.
Yeah. So revisiting this game, I definitely had to remove the rose tinted glasses.
Mm-hmm.
I had to think, okay, what if I was playing this for the first time now? What would this look like? Would this look okay as a 1995 game? And I kind of realized, yeah, it looks like a typical 1995 game. It didn't age well at all. But like thinking about where it came from, if it came from 1998, this game would have got it too.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually gave this one a 3 for aged, because I feel like it's almost all about the way it plays like a fighting game. It's almost like that's what keeps it kind of. The gameplay itself doesn't feel aged, even though it's, rough to traverse with characters, turn corners and stuff. But the concept, when you get used to it, it feels kind of like a fighting game. When a fighting game, even when it gets old, kind of stands the test of time, even if it looks rough. Mm-hmm. And that's what this was. I kind of met in the middle with a 3, because I feel like it definitely it made my eyes bleed a little bit, but my thumbs were having a great time.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I'm gonna jump in here. I felt like it aged pretty poorly. Now, there's a couple reasons for this. I did the same thing I do for every single game we play on the show, and I handed this game to my 8-year-old daughter, because I figured, who's a better judge of whether a game is aged or not than the current generation of children, right? Because this game was meant for children. Well, and I don't know if Twisted Metal was meant for children, but video games.
I played it as a kid.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we all did.
I mean, my mom bought me Silent Hill when I was a kid, but I mean, it doesn't. Anyway.
I got Parasite Eve when I was a kid. My mom had no idea.
Yeah, some parents are just like, video game he wants, who cares? Here it is. And like, what's the M mean? I don't know. Doesn't matter. But anyway,
means much fun. That's what.
Yeah, right. So I handed this game to my 8-year-old daughter, and she did not. She didn't really like it too much. So she played it for maybe about 5 minutes or so, said it was too hard to see, and then she also said it was too hard to move her guy. And I was just like, you know what? I think those are valid points. I gave aged a 1.5 here, not solely based on that, but I also do agree with my 8-year-old in the sense that I do think the controls are really dated. I think it was tough to, like, the controls weren't really intuitive at all. Playing older game, or well, I guess newer games, Triangle really made me want to. I was really thinking Triangle was reverse for the longest time, and down was reverse, right? Am I getting that wrong?
It's down or circle.
Okay, so circle I don't even think I ever even tried circle, because
but you would think it's triangle because it's right next to accelerate, which was square. You would think, oh, it's just a thumb movement away, but no, you had to go across the controller. You had to hold down on the D-pad.
Yeah,
and that's the worst button to think is reverse too, because it's the turbo button. So you're just going more forward.
Yeah. Okay. So I had that issue a couple times where I'm like flying backwards, and I'm like, why am I going so far backwards? Because I didn't even realize that. Anyway, I had a hard time with the actual controls of the game, and the visuals during it made it really hard to find your opponents. Like I said, the environments were it's just a mishmash of colors, and it was really hard to look at times. Other than that, the gameplay of it, the actual, like, less kind of exactly what you were saying, the whole like idea of Twisted Metal is not like an idea that seems like an old idea to me. Like, it seems, I don't know. I want them to make another Twisted Metal. I know that they came out with one like fairly recently. I don't think it was received very well. As far as like sales goes, I think it kind of hit its target audience, which is the people that played it back in the 90s, but I don't think any really new customers probably didn't pick it up. At least that's what I heard when it came out anyway. I never got to play it, but I haven't played a Twisted Metal since Twisted Metal Black. Actually, which one came out more recently? Black or Head On? Head On probably,
Head On.
right? For the PSP? Okay, I played that one.
Did you play it on the PSP or the PS2?
The PSP.
Oh, I was about to say, if you played it on the PS2, since we're talking about TM1, there were live action endings. Did you know about that? They had live action endings filmed. So those characters in those portraits were actors who did these like 2-minute video endings.
Wow.
They were bad.
Hey man,
but they're so worth checking out, especially Sweet Tooth.
Funny.
It's absolutely bonkers. And Calypso, the guy you see in the portrait in the background, he's one of the actors too. It's so low budget, but it's such a shame that it got cut off the game and replaced with the text crawl, because they would have been on so many top 10 worst acting on video games lists up there with Jill Sandwich and all that other stuff. It was so bad, but so entertaining, and they were so cool. I would have loved those as a kid, but those were packed in Twisted Metal Head On. You could watch those as extras.
That's cool.
Wow.
Yeah, that's actually how I found out about them. I was just playing that, going through the extras, and the Head On for PS2 has all this extra stuff you could look at, and it's like original Twisted Metal 1 endings. I'm like, what? and there were like there was all these artifacts. Looked like it was on a VHS. Someone had to put it on this disc from a VHS. It was so aged but so cool.
Oh wow,
that is awesome. Definitely have to check those out.
Yeah, you can find them on the internet easily. You could search them on YouTube, whatever video site. Yeah.
That's awesome. So I landed on a 1.5. What about you, Yaiser?
Same, dude. I'm right there with you. 1.5.
Okay.
I think my expectation goggles got the best of me on this game.
That's actually fair.
I was expecting to have a lot more fun than I actually did. Basically, I mean, Liv's not wrong. It was hard to look at, and it was hard to move my guy. So, like, really just pissed me off sometimes. It sucks because I don't know, man. I had the memory. Like, Black was so good. I knew like the PS1 games weren't as good as that, but like, that game was just like so good. I think if they were to do a new one, like you were saying, they should go dark again, real dark, like Black was, and like creepy almost. And really
that's what they tried to do with that last one on PS3. Is they kind of took Black and made it very similar. Like Sweet Tooth's almost the exact same character in the remake, and then at the very end they teased for a sequel, and that was what, 10 years ago now. 10, 11 years ago.
Has to be a long time ago.
I haven't had one since. So.
That's rough.
Oh yeah. Long story short, did not age very well, man.
Yeah. So here's our total scores here. Yaiser came in at the lowest at a 2.7. I came in at the middle, 2.9, and Les was the highest at a 3.2. We're all kind of right there, though. We average out to a 2.93. I guess basically, I feel like we all kind of feel very similarly about it, where we're like, we had, really fond memories of the series in general. But then when we go back to play the original, we're like, oh, this just wasn't it. This wasn't the fond memory that I had. You know what I mean? So it does, however, I'm not going to say playing this game was a total disappointment, because I do still intend to go back and try to play some more and unlock some of those videos. And I also am very, very excited to play Twisted Metal 2, because I think it leaves me more excited knowing that it's better than what I just played. And I did have fun playing Twisted Metal. I just didn't have as much fun as I thought I was going to have.
Yeah, 2 is definitely the one that everyone remembers. Like when they think of Twisted Metal, that's probably, like you said, that's why we were all kind of like ho hum about this one, because we all remembered 2. Because 2 was peak. Like I was realizing playing this one that 2 has all these landmarks, all these special areas. You knew where you were at on the map, and this one you're like, well, what block am I? There's no street signs.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough. The in-game, some of the in-game visuals left me a little disappointed, but the actual gameplay was still pretty fun. All right, so I guess just real quickly, Yaiser, would you tell anybody to relive this game? Would you recommend this to anybody who's never played it before?
No, play 2.
Yeah. I have a very, I feel the same way. What about you, Les?
I feel like if you were to revisit Twisted Metal anywhere, if you were to play any Twisted Metal game, this one ain't it. This one and 3, I think, are not it. 2, Black, Head On, the remake, any Small Brawl, yeah. Those would be way better contenders for like a, bringing one out and playing it again. This one, it was just strictly nostalgia for me. It was not like, when you're a kid, you're easily entertained usually, especially back then with the limitations of games, but 2 was way better. I hate saying that. 2 was way better than this one. I think even maybe Twisted Metal 4 might have been better than this one.
Do you have a favorite?
Gosh, I actually have them all stacked right here.
Nice.
I have all, which is weird. I have all but 1 and 2, which I thought I had 1, but I don't know. I must have lost it a long time ago. But it's either Head On Extra Twisted Edition or Black.
Okay.
Yeah.
So either of the PS2 versions.
Yeah, it might just be Black actually, because I remember that was the first time I played Twisted Metal, and I was up at night, all night, unlocking characters. So I feel like if anybody was to revisit any Twisted Metal game, Black would probably be the best option.
Okay. Totally fair. All right. So now's the time where we randomize the game that we are going to play next week. So if you guys are ready, I'm going to hit that randomizer.
Yeah, spin it.
All right, Les. We have a question for you here. So I'm going to vaguely describe this game and see if you can guess it right. Don't feel any pressure. Most people get it wrong. So we have a real-time tactics game developed by Game Refuge and published by EA for the Sega Genesis in 1994.
Oh, gosh. And back then it was just called Electronic Arts, right? So I'm trying to visualize the logo. On the Genesis, real-time strategy. Oh man,
I've never heard of this game before. Somebody recommended it to us.
It's. I don't even have a guess for that one. That's a tough one.
You want me to just say it?
Yeah, go ahead.
General Chaos.
Never heard of it.
Never heard of it either.
Yeah, never heard of that.
And I actually made a mistake earlier when I said next week is our Patreon episode. That was a complete fabrication. Our Patreon episode is in 2 weeks from now. It's episode 4. So we will be joined by Lost in the 80s and 90s over on TikTok to play and talk about General Chaos next week. Now, Les, we always ask our guests to recommend a game to us from what we consider retro as any time before the PS3, Wii, or Xbox 360 era. So if you have any games in mind, something you love, something you want to see us play that's awful, let us have it, man. What do you want to add to our list?
It doesn't have to be awful.
Last time I said God Hand. So, this was one I played all the time. Have you ever heard of Amplitude?
You know what? I always saw it in Blockbuster when I went to go rent things, but I never picked it up. Is it a music rhythm game?
It is, and you only need your controller. It's super addicting.
Cool.
It's Guitar Hero for your controller. In fact, it's Harmonix, the people who went on to make Guitar Hero.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, it's cool. So it's called Amplitude, right? For PS2?
Yep.
Is it for like Xbox and GameCube also, or is it just PS2?
It's just PS2. They had a remake on PS4, but it was a lot of, I don't know if it was generic music or licensed music, but it was a lot of music that didn't really stick with me.
Gotcha.
But the PS2 one to me is the one that had licensed music. They had like Blink 182, Slipknot, POD, Pink, all sorts of artists on it.
That's cool.
Very cool.
Yeah, so we're adding that to the master list. And that's about it for us for this week. Les, you want to tell them where they can find you one last time?
Yeah, it's Les Dewitt on TikTok, and then Les Dilemma on Instagram and YouTube.
Very cool. And like I said before, guys, yeah, you can find us on Patreon, $2 a month to put your game into our Patreon pool. And we play one Patreon game every single month. And it's not next week, but it's in 2 weeks. So you have enough time to get in there and get your game in. And you can also find us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, Twitch, all the places. Just type in Reliving Retro. You'll find us on there. We even have a Facebook that we don't post to and a Discord that we don't post in. So if you want to find us there where we don't do anything and you want to just yell into an endless void, feel free. Because we're there too. Yeah. But that's it for us for this week, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and make sure to check out next week's episode on General Chaos. We'll see you guys later.
Peace.